Kirti, I think that was fantastic and great cases once again. And I know you work with great enthusiasm. You know what, he made a point which is very valid, that if you have an undeployed or a partially deployed stent and you have to do the rotational atherectomy, upsize your burr, because the mechanism for this process would be the heating or the heat which you generate with your burr, which sort of allows the metal to give way a bit, and then you can open your stent and also probably burr the thing. Yes, Daru. Yes, Daru. Yeah, you know, as I said, that so far in the literature what they have done is that they have, because this is probably in the era when drug-eluting stents were not there, so they were bare metal stents, so there could be a restenosis at that site. So they have covered this entire stent with another stent. What I did in my case was I just trapped the distal end of the stent, because otherwise the stent will continue to move in the coronary with the blood flow and the movement. So even after crushing, it tends to slip down. Yeah, you try and judge the size of the coronary where it has fallen down, and you will have to ensure that you completely crush it so that it has to be the size of the coronary. It doesn't depend on the size of the stent. Yes, where the stent has fallen down. So if it's left main, you may have to use a larger one. Yes, Kirti.
I mean, Sudhir, that was amazing how you got out of that situation. Is there, you know, you ended up putting that, anchoring the stent at the distal end, and you said something like, I chose not to stent the whole crushed stent. How does it pan out? I mean, when I look at the OCT data from some of the newer trials, and if I look at struts which are hanging in the lumen, they end up getting endothelialized, creating dual lumens, especially with the absorbed stents. So if you have a stent which is in there, you don't have an iris, and you know that it's probably away from the wall, you feel comfortable leaving it that way? Or, I mean, this is just this one particular case, or I don't know how that works.
You know, unfortunately, as I said, that I also don't have a big experience, and I did what I felt right at that point in time, and this is my only case which I can really talk about. So the only thing which came to my mind is that this is already a drug-eluting stent which has fallen in the coronary, and though I couldn't show the images well, I thought I had flattened it out reasonably well to oppose it against the vessel wall, and that's why I did not want too much of metal, because I had a distal stent, I had some huge dissections, and you know, I was really worried of putting too much of metal inside, and I was not sure whether a big stent will again track down the coronary. So I took a short stent.
So I have two comments to make. First, in continuation with take-home message from Sushil. So whenever it's a routine practice we follow in our hospital, that whenever we're doing coronary intervention and we get unexplained hypotension or restlessness, that when the coronary anatomy is not able to define, first thing we do is check the bladder of the patient. We put our fluoro down and see the bladder. If the bladder is shifted towards one side, it's bound to have some sort of a retroperitoneal hematoma. Generally, it happens at the time when you have either balloon dilated or you're about to put a stent, and by that time sufficient amount of blood accumulates down and it causes some amount of hypotension. So as if you are not able to explain hypotension by any means, please check whether there is any retroperitoneal hematoma or not. And secondly, for Kirti's presentation, nowadays for very long we have not used any burr more than 1.75. Now the idea is not to totally or aggressively debulk a lesion. We just create a passage, we modify the plaque. It's not to take away all the calcium which is there, it's only to modify the plaque with a 1.25, 1.5 and at max 1.75, and then prepare it nicely with a balloon dilatation and then stent it. I mean, I think the same practice which you also follow, that don't use a higher size burr of more than 2.25 nowadays.
Sandeep, I'm glad you mentioned this actually. So the question is, when would I go and upsize a burr in my practice today? We looked at we do approximately 80 rotational atherectomies a year. So I looked at my data of around close to 220 cases, which I could manage on my laptop, which is current. And I took off the cases where I upsized the burr, where I thought I upsized the burr. And those are the ones where if I do an absolute time on the rotational atherectomy, the ablation time, not the total procedure time, but if I have an ablation time which is in excess, it's in 2 digits, like it's 10 minutes and more, then I am not satisfied with using that just one burr. So if I were to use a 1.2 burr and it has taken me 10 and a half, 11 minutes to go across the lesion of ablation time, then I feel that I have sufficient calcium left behind. I go upsize it, and you know, people have talked about upsizing by quarter is not great enough, and you have to if you upsize by 0.5. But those things used to be relevant in 1995 and 96 when people didn't do what we did now. In today's practice, if you can even upsize by 0.25, I think it's good enough, because you just want to get that extra purchase to get your balloons to work and a smooth passage for your stents, basically.
Exactly.
I think the one issue, and that's a great point, I personally don't like the 125 burr. I think one of my concerns about the 125 burr, the shape is such that the surface which is making contact, which is going to ablate, is less. And also the shape is such that, you know, at times it can tend to dive forward without doing a full ablation. If the burr, you're much higher risk with a 125 than a 1.5 with that. And if it dives forward and you haven't fully ablated the lesion, your burr can get stuck past the lesion. It can be difficult to pull back. You know, one of the tricks, you know, I've had that happen a couple of times where the burr has gotten stuck. And it can be a very nerve-wracking situation because you're in a tight lesion, you've disrupted flow to an extent, and the patient can get ischemic. The options when the burr gets stuck, and I think it's important to sort of discuss that because that will happen every once in a while. One is to try and get another wire alongside, but often that's not possible because it's tight. But if you can get another wire alongside, you can take a small balloon, a 125 balloon or something, and inflate. You may be able to just push it off wherever it's stuck and pull it back. The last ditch option is to pull everything out, and obviously you're at risk for having a dissection there. One thing is if you're pulling everything out, don't pull on the rotablator itself, because that is a plastic sheath and that will just stretch. What you can do is the wire, you can use the wire to your advantage. The wire has an 0.14 tip, but the rest of the wire is 0.009. So if you pull the wire back to the tip of the burr, it can't get into the burr. And then you can pull on the wire and the burr together. That will keep the rotablator material from stretching, and it'll give you more leverage to pull the device out. And there's always other tricks with snares and stuff to get more force to pull it out, but those are situations which are difficult. The other thing is if you have an underdeployed stent and you have to rotablate the stent, you know, the techniques to doing that are challenging. I mean, there's a lot of heat generated and a lot of embolic material generated when you're rotablating a stent. And the key is extreme patience when you do that. You know, short runs because the heat's going to be excessive and generated. And you need the RPMs, again, like someone mentioned earlier, should be turned up. And, you know, instead of 170, 180 on the RPMs, I'll generally go to 200, and sometimes you may need to even go a little higher. But short motions and not being too aggressive if you're trying to rotablate a stent is important. Any questions?
That's a nice session we had. I think we'll close the session now.